Good morning, students. Welcome to the lecture of Real Analysis 1. We will first recall the concepts we have studied in the last lecture. In the last lecture, the first theorem we have recalled is if there is an open ball B bar, open ball B along with its boundary dou B, that it is a closure, and if it is a multivariable, multivalued function which is given to be continuous and has the finite partial derivative, and Jacobian determinant is non-zero for the points of the ball x is in B, and f of x is not equal to f of a for the points on the boundary, then we have proved that f image an open ball B, that is f of B, contains an n-ball centered at f of a. We have seen the definition of open mapping. A mapping which takes open sets to open set is an open mapping. The next theorem we have studied is for an open subset A of Rn, if the function defined from A to Rn is continuous and is having the finite partial derivative. Having finite partial derivative means the function is differentiable. Then if the function is 1 to 1 on A, it is 1 1 on A, and Jacobian determinant is not equal to 0 for a point, each point x in A, then we have proved that f of A is open. This is the third theorem in our syllabus, in our chapter. Next, we have seen a theorem, again f to be a multivariable, multivalued function having continuous partial derivatives djfi on an open subset. Jacobian determinant is non-zero for a point A in S, then we have proved that there exists a small n ball, or there exists an open n ball around B on which the function is 1 1. This is what we have proved. And systematic proof we have seen. In order to prove this, we have made use of the mean value theorem and the system of linear equations and etc. Okay. Therefore, up to now, how many properties we have seen for the non-zero Jacobian determinant? First property we have seen is for an open ball B, the F image contains an open ball is the first property. If the set A is open, then its image f of A is open. If Jacobian determinant is non-zero at some point, then we have proved that Jacobian determinant is non-zero around the open ball around the point A. Also, we have proved that if Jacobian determinant is non-zero, the function is 1 1. Now, the fifth theorem we were going to prove that if the Jacobian determinant is non-zero, then the mapping is an open mapping. Let me write the statement. Let A be an open subset, A be an open subset of Rn, and assume that f from A to Rn has finite or has continuous partial derivatives. Continuous partial derivatives, that is, partial derivatives exist and are continuous. This is called as a class function, a C1 class function. Continuous derivatives dj fi on A. If Jacobian determinant is not equals to 0, g of x is not equals to 0 for all x in A, then prove that. What to prove? F is an open mapping. F is an open mapping. With all these conditions, already we have proved that f of A is open. But in order to prove this to be an open mapping, for every open subset A, we have to prove that its F image is an open set. This is what we want to prove in this, right? Therefore, what we will start with? We will start with S to be an open subset of A, and our aim is to prove that its F image, that is f of S, is open. Therefore, let me write, let S be any open subset of A. Now we will use the theorems which we have proved already. If x is in S such that Jacobian determinant is non-zero, we have already proved that the function is 1 1 on the open ball. No? Then by previous theorem, what is the number? 4, no? It is 4, I think. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
But just previous theorem. Okay. Therefore, by previous theorem, if x belongs to S, if x belongs to S, there is an open ball. There is an open ball B of x in which f is 1, 1. Correct, no? This is what we have proved. Provided the condition, no doubt. This is due to Jacobian determinant is not equal to 0. Not x is started with S. We have proved that we have given that Jacobian determinant is non-zero for all x point in the A. Therefore, x is in S we have selected where S is a subset of A. Therefore, Jacobian determinant must be non-zero for the points in S as well. Okay. Now, this is what by theorem number 4 we have written that there exists an open ball on which the function is 1, 1. Now, let me use again the theorem number 3. What is theorem number 3 tells us? If A is open, we have proved f of A is open. Now here we are starting with B of x. B of x is an open ball, no doubt it is an open set. Therefore, may I write f of B of x is open? By theorem number 4, the image of open set B of x, that is f of B of x, is open in Rn. Correct, no? By theorem number 3, what is the statement of theorem number 3? Whenever A is an open subset, we have proved that f of its image is a open set. Now here we are starting with B of x is an open set, therefore its f image we have written to be open in Rn. Now what is the aim to prove? What is the aim to prove? In order to prove f is an open mapping, what should I prove? For any arbitrary open set, we want to prove that its f image is open. Therefore, what is my claim? The claim is to prove that f of S is open set in Rn. Correct, na? F of S is an open set in Rn. Now, in order to prove this f of S is an open set, we are going to express this f of S to be union of open sets. How? Let us check. We can write. How can we write an every open set? May I write every open set to be the collection of open balls for x in S? Is that fine? Every open
Yes,
set
ma'am.
union of countable union of open balls. This we have studied. Now what we will do? We will take f image on both the sides. Taking f image on both. What will happen if I take the f image? This will be f of s equal to f of union b of x. How can I evaluate this f of union? Is it union of the f images? This is union of f of b of x. But what is f of b of x? Is an open set? Correct, no?
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
not no, f of b of x is open set in Rn. Then what is the countable union of open sets?
Open set.
This is open union of any collection of open set. Union of any collection of open sets is open. Right now, therefore here let me write f of s is open, and hence the proof. Yes, check any difficulty with this theorem. A theorem proof is very easy actually. We were just going to use two steps. Now one may think now why this f is 1 1 was used. Because if I want to use the statement number 3, we will just come to the statement number 3. In statement number 3, it was essential to have the function to be 1 1. Then only we can write the here it is theorem number 3. Here is the condition now f is 1 1. If f is a 1 1, having continuous partial derivative, Jacobian determinant non-zero, then only for an open subset we were writing its F image is open. That's why in order to use this theorem number 3, we have initially made clear that the function is 1, 1. Then only we can write for any open set yes. Then only we can write for any open set B of x, its F image is open. To use theorem number 3, this condition is essential. That's why we have written. Okay, and later, knowing this open set is union of open balls, we have proved this F of s to be the collection of open sets, hence it is open. Therefore, hence the proof of this theorem also. Now we will move towards an important theorem of this unit called as inverse function theorem. Means here in this theorem we are going to give the existence of inverse of multivariable multivalued function. Okay, what are the conditions for the inverse to exist for one variable real valued function? Suppose a function is defined from A to R, where A is the subset of R. That is the nature of the function is R to R type. One variable real valued function. In which case we can say that, or under which conditions we say that the inverse of this function exists?
Function must be 1, 1 and on 2.
Yes, if inverse exists if F is 1, 1 and 1, 2. Can anyone tell me why the conditions are essential 1, 1 and on 2, or which of them is stronger? Whether 1, 1 is stronger or on 2 is stronger?
1, 1.
1, 1 is rather a stronger condition. Why? Because if the function is not onto, we can define, suppose this is not onto. Okay, if it is not onto, what we can do? We can define a function from A to its range set, so that the function F inverse would be defined on F of A on its range. Correct now? Okay. Therefore, if it is not onto, we can say the inverse can be defined on the range set of the given function. But if it is not 1, 1, we cannot find its inverse. Can anyone tell me why if it is not 1, 1, it will not be defined, or whether the inverse is not going to exist? If it is not 1, 1, what will be the type of a function? 1 many or many 1?
Many 1.
Why it is not 1 many?
It will not be function then.
Yes, it will not be a function. Okay. If it is 1, 1, see, this was a situation. If it is 1, 1, every point is connected to, I am going to explain with the help of Venn diagram. This is a 1, 1 function. No? What is the second type we have discussed?
Many 1.
This is many 1. Okay. Now check in this 1, 1 condition. If I want to say that the inverse, F inverse exists, then it will be a reverse situation, assuming 1, 2. Okay. Then for every point, say A1, A2, A3 and A4, we were writing the corresponding images. Okay. Now if I want to go reverse, then for this every point on the domain of F inverse, this is A and B. That is, for every point in B, there exists a unique image in A. And this is possible as it is a 1, 1 function. Right? Now let us check what happens in many 1. Many 1 means what? Two different image elements can be mapped to a single element. Correct now? Now I want to check whether the inverse going to exist. What will happen if we are going to find out the inverse in this case? Whatever is this element we will have, say B1 if I call. A1, A2, A3 and A4. B1, this is B2, B3 and B4. So Okay. Then what about this in the reverse case? B1 is going to take two different images, correct? A1 and A2 in case of many one function. Therefore, here inverse is not going to exist. Is the point clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Similarly, we were going to find out the conditions for one variable multi-value function so that inverse is going to exist. Therefore, let us write the statement of the function in detail and then we will come to the proof of the statement, right? Let me write the statement. This is number 6 theorem, I think. How many theorems I told you in all? 8 or 9 something, no? Let us write the statement. Assume that f equal to f1, f2 dot dot fn belongs to C1. What is a C1? Just now I told you. On an open set S in Rn and let T is equal to f of S. Full stop. If the Jacobian determinant J of A is not equal to 0 for some point A in S, then prove that there are two open sets. Statement is somewhat lengthy actually. I have shared a video on inverse function theorem by Professor S. Kumresan on Google Classroom. Whether anyone has seen the video? There are two open sets, X is in S, Y is in T, and a uniquely determined function G such that, see, now we are going to prove the existence of a function G such that there are in all 5 points to prove. First point is A is in X and f of A is in Y. A is in X, f of A is in Y. Point number B, capital Y is equal to f of X. Point number 3, f is 1 to 1 on capital X. Point number D, G is defined on X. G is defined on Y such that G of capital Y is equal to X and G of f of X is equal to X for all X in X. And number E, to prove G belongs to C1 on Y. We'll try to understand the statement first. We'll go to the proof later. Okay, what are the conditions given? F is no doubt a multivariable, multi-valued function, right? Then, yes, what's the nature of the function? Can anyone tell me the nature? F from what type of function? This is defined on Rn, on a subset S in Rn. Okay, therefore this is from Rn2. What will be a codomain space? What are the dimensions of codomain space? Looking at the statement. Is it Rn again? Because f is defined to be f1, f2 to fn. Therefore the nature of the function is of the type Rn to Rn. Nature of the function is of Rn to Rn. Then P is equal to f of S. It was given. Means, may I say P is a range of S? Range of F?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. It is given to be range of F. Then Jacobian determinant is non-zero for some point A in S, some point in the domain. Then we want to prove that there are two open sets. One is in the domain, second is in the range, and a uniquely determined function g such that, what such that, if A is in X, its F image is in Y is equal to F of X. Therefore, if I define the function here, if I write the function from X to Y equal to F of X whenever we write, therefore may I say this condition assures that F is on 2. F is on 2. Again, third condition tells us that F is 1 to 1 on X. Now, both the conditions satisfies. F is 1 on X, F is 1 to X. Therefore, inverse is going to exist. Therefore, this G plays a role of inverse. G plays a role of inverse, which is defined on Y. See here it was gy is equal to X. But the nature of the function here is G is from Y to X. G of Y is equal to X means this function is on to as well. And it is defined as G of F of X is equal to X. Therefore, G plays a role of inverse of G, inverse of F. Correct, na? G plays a role of inverse of F. Correct, no? Inverse of F. And what is the last condition is going to tell us? It belongs to C1. C1 class is the set of all continuously differentiable functions. I don't know whether you are reading this. Here also, in the function also it was given. F belongs to C1. Okay. First, let me write what is the meaning of C1. C1 is the class of all differentiable functions. Class of all differentiable functions whose derivative is continuous. Whose derivative is continuous. What about the nature of a function, whether the function itself is continuous or not? Differentiable function whose the first derivative I can write. If it is C2, then differentiable function up to order 2 whose derivative, second order derivative is continuous. This is also written to be continuously differentiable. Yes? Can anyone answer me? If the derivative, if the class is of this function, differentiable function whose derivative is continuous, then what about the nature of the function? Whether the function itself is continuous or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Why? Because every differentiable is continuous.
Continuous.
Correct, no? Every differentiable is continuous, that we have proved already. In case of one variable also and in case of multivariable also, we have proved that the differentiation gives us the continuous. Therefore, this is the continuous function whose first derivative is also continuous. Okay. Now, let me just show you with a sketch that what we wanted to prove actually. Okay. What we wanted to prove. See, let me draw a sketch here. Okay, let me just show you by taking. Say this is a domain, yes, which is a subset of RNS space, no doubt. Okay, F is a continuous function. I think I can write a continuous function now. Okay, now we wanted to prove that there exists some P. There exists some P open subset of no doubt Rn. Okay. Now we wanted to prove if this is A, this is some, it's F image C. If this is one point A in S, the F image is in Y. Therefore, the first point, it ensures that we want to prove the existence of two open sets X and Y, which are contained in S and T respectively, such that A is in X and F of A is in Y. How to prove this? It's a later part. I'll just show you what we wanted to prove. We wanted to prove the existence of X to be an open set in S, where A is in X. Now again there exists an open set Y in T, where F of A is in Y. This is what our claim is. Claim I have shown you. graphically with a sketch. Okay. Now let us start the proof. Now the proof of this theorem totally depends on the construction. Now I will tell you the construction stepwise. I will tell you the construction stepwise. Once you understand the construction, half of the proof, rather the first 4 points. There are inner 5 points to prove, na? A, B, C, D, E. If we understand the construction of this theorem very clearly, the first 4 points of the proof are readily true. Only we have to take an effort to prove the last point, that is, it has the derivative, right? So let us start with the proof of this theorem. To write the proof of this theorem, we are going to start with our Jacobian determinant function. We are going to start with Jacobian determinant function. Therefore, here I am going to write Jf is a function which is actually a Jacobian determinant. Which is actually a Jacobian determinant. Now, what will be the order of this Jacobian determinant? Function is of the type Rn
n cross n.
Yes, this Jacobian matrix is of n cross n. Therefore, this will be actually a polynomial in n square entries, right? No? And we have proved that we know that every polynomial is continuous. Therefore, may I say this Jf is a continuous function. Continuous function defined on the set yes. Okay. What is the condition given? Jacobian determinant is non-zero at a point A in yes. At a point A in yes. We have proved one theorem that if the Jacobian determinant is non-zero at some point, then it is non-zero in its neighborhood as well. Correct now? This is non-zero at some point A in S, and since Jf is continuous, may I say there exists an n ball B1 of A on which Jacobian determinant is non-zero. Okay, Jacobian determinant is non-zero. Let me show you. The sketch is like this. If you are getting confused, you can stop me at any stage and you can ask me the questions. Okay. The first ball we wanted to draw around the point A. Okay, see. Let this be a point A in S. No doubt S is a subset of Rn, at which point the Jacobian determinant is given to be non-zero. Now, knowing Jf is continuous, we have found a neighborhood around A such that it is a B1 of A on which the Jacobian determinant is non-zero. On this red ball, Jacobian determinant is non-zero. Now, knowing this Jacobian determinant is non-zero on B1 of A, just now we have proved a previous theorem. If Jacobian determinant is non-zero on the given ball, then it is 1, 1 as well. Correct, no? Then it is 1, 1. Which theorem? Number 4, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Theorem number 4. Yes. I'll show you. Every time I'll show you the statement. Number 4. Here is the statement. Here is the statement. Number 4. If Jacobian determinant is non-zero at some point, then we have proved that there exists an n ball on which the function is 1, 1. Right? Now here also Jacobian determinant is non-zero at some point A in S. Now we can find out an open ball around A on which the function is 1, 1. Now whatever the open ball we have drawn just now on which the function is non-zero, let me draw another open ball which is contained in B of A and on which the function is 1, 1. Okay, therefore this is the ball I am going to assume. This is the ball, say B of A I am writing now, on which the function is 1, 1. F is 1, 1. This is the ball on which Jf is non-zero. Jacobian determinant is non-zero. This is the another ball. Now, how we have selected the ball B of A, which is contained in B1 of A. Okay, on B1 of A, Jacobian determinant non-zero. On B of A, it is 1, 1. Means on B of A, both the conditions holds. Okay, next point. Now, again, let me use theorem number 2. What the theorem number 2 we have proved actually? Whenever we have an open ball, its F image contains an N ball. Right now, for that I am taking one more ball around B, and I am going to call this to be some B only. Okay, let this be an open ball around B selected, which is contained in B of A. Which is 3 balls we have taken now. B contained in B of A, contained in B1 of A. Now this be an open ball around centered at A. Okay. Now let me use the function here. Let me use the theorem number 2. I just erase this. I wanted to show you the F image here. Okay. Now I will find out the F image, knowing it is continuous, satisfies all the restrictions of theorem number 2. Therefore, for this B, there exists a image F of B. Na? Actually, this is going to lie in T subset of okay, T is equal to F of S, I will call. Okay, then what is the F image of this open ball B? Is it F of B? We don't know what is the structure of F of B, whether it is a ball or not. Therefore, this F of B, theorem number 2 tells us that if B is a open ball centered at A image, then its F image contains an open ball. Its F image contains an open ball centered at
F of A.
good.
F of A.
Centered at, yes, good. It is centered at F of A. Okay. And how we have made the selection of the balls? B contained in B of A, contained in B1 of A. Now this B is contained in B of A was taken because now we wanted to define G, or the rest part is going to be defined on B bar. What is B bar? B along with its boundary. B along with its boundary. Therefore, may I say B bar is contained in B of A. Correct now? Look at the sketch. This open ball is in B of A. Therefore, what about B bar? Ball with its boundary is in B of A again.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, on which both the conditions true. Jacobian determinant non-zero function is 1, 1 as well. Therefore, the aim behind taking the ball inside one another is the only reason, because for this we wanted to show B bar is in B of A. Okay. Is this construction clear to everyone up to this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now what
Yes,
we are
ma'am.
going to call, we are going to find out two open sets X and Y of S and T. Na? Let us come to the statement. Our aim is to find out two open sets X and Y which are contained in S and T respectively, which satisfies all these restrictions. Now what I am going to do, I am going to select this open ball as Y. As it is an open ball, it is an open set.
Yes,
Correct,
ma'am.
na? This open ball is in F of B is in T. Therefore, surely this open ball Y is in T. First thing was clear. Okay. Now on this, if suppose we were time being, if I suppose that the inverse exists, then where is the location of your F inverse? F inverse is going to lie somewhere here, na? Is in yes. What is F inverse image of this Y? You have to come back to the domain, right now? You have to come back to the domain. Time being, assume that the F inverse of this Y is somewhat like this. Wait a minute, I have to take A including in. I have to including A, we have to find out. Let this be F inverse of Y. Let this be F inverse of y. Now, what I am going to select? I am going to select this intersection of f inverse y with this ball as x. Here is the center A. Whatever is the intersection, okay, of this f inverse y with a ball, we are going to take this as x. Therefore, x selected is f inverse y intersection B. F inverse y intersection B. If y is open, f is continuous, f inverse y is again open. Whenever a function is continuous, inverse image of open set is open. Therefore, this is open, ball is open, intersection of two open sets is open. Therefore, x is a open set. Therefore, which set I am going to select this as? This I am going to select, this shaded region. I am going to select as x. Okay, x we have found, y we have found. Okay, all the balls we have taken, inner balls is taken just to ensure all the properties. Finally, this B is contained in B of A is taken to ensure that this B bar is also contained in B of A. Is the construction understood up to this? If this is understood, proof is easy. Or if you have the doubts, you can ask me. Let me start from the first point. S is the open set. S is the domain of our function here. Okay. T is given to be its a range. It is in the statement itself. Okay. Look at this. T is given to be f of s. Therefore, S is the domain. S is the domain and P is the range of the continuous function. Yeah. Later, we have trying to define a Jacobian determinant function. Jacobian determinant function is always a non-continuous function. It is given to be non-zero at some point. Therefore, by previous theorem we have written there exists a n ball on which the function is non-zero still. Therefore, we have found a open ball B1A around A on which Jacobian determinant is non-zero. Later, by using the theorem, we have written that there exists an open ball B of A on which the function is 1 to 1. B of A we have selected to be inner ball of B. Inner ball of B. Here I have to write strictly included, not properly. Therefore, B of A, B1 of A may be equal or may be the inner ball as well. Later on B of A, we have found F is 1, 1. Third, we have found an open ball around A. Open ball around A, which we have denoted by B simply. Then, by the second theorem, F image of this open ball, F of B, is going to contain an open sphere centered at F of A, which we have denoted by capital Y. Okay. If I denote this by capital Y is in F of B is in T. Therefore, surely Y is an open set in T because it is an open ball. Time being, assume that the inverse exists. We are going to prove it actually, but time being, if I assume that the inverse exists, then F inverse of Y will be some part of our domain set. Yes? Correct, no? F inverse
Yes,
of Y
ma'am.
will be some part of the domain. Good. Then what we are going to define? We are going to take X to be intersection of F inverse Y and this open ball B. Therefore, whatever is this black shaded region is the X set we are going to define. As it is the intersection of two open sets, this must be open. This is the construction. Now we will prove the 5 points that are given to us in the proof itself. Okay? Any doubt up to this? लक्षात आले का सगळे बॉल कसे घेतले, x कसा घेतला, y कसा घेतला?
Yes,
If you
ma'am.
understand this construction, there is no problem with the proof. Okay? This sketch is nowhere available in any book. Okay? But without a sketch, it is difficult to understand. Therefore, I am explaining my students with the help of a sketch itself. Okay? Understood the construction? Now let us continue the proof. I hope there is no difficulty to anyone. This is the claim. X is open set in S, Y is open set in T, such that A is in X, F of A is in y. This is the first point. No? If a is in x, f of a is in y, we want to prove. Then y is equal to f of x, we want to prove f is 1 to 1, g of f of x is equal to x. And last point is g belongs to C1 high, continuously differentiable function. This is the claim. This is the claim. And this is what the construction we have made. Okay. Now let me proceed to the proof. Let us write the textbook proof now. First, I will explain the construction in the proof, and then we will go to prove the 5 points. Okay. The function jf is continuous. The function jf is continuous on yes. Is it true? This is going to be a polynomial in n square entries. Always, polynomial is continuous always. That's why this jf is a continuous function. And j of a is not equal to 0 for some a in yes. Okay. This implies there is an open ball or n ball, I right? There is an n ball b1 of a such that what is the ball we have selected? J of x is not equals to 0 for all x in this open ball b1 of a. This is the first construction actually. Okay. Now let us use the theorem to show that there exists an open ball around a on which the function is 1. Therefore, by theorem number 4, there is an n ball. There is an n ball b of a contained in b1 of a on which f is 1 1. This b of a may be exactly equal to b1 of a, or it may be an inner ball as well. There is no difficulty if I take a inner ball as well. This is the second ball we have selected. Now the third ball b will select, whose f image will contain an open ball. Okay. Let b be an n ball with center at a, and radius smaller than that of b of a. Here we are mentioning specially the radius of b is smaller than b of a. That is, b is exactly the inner ball of b of a. Why reason I told you now? Because we wanted to find out b bar, ball along with its boundary to be contained in b of a. That's why the radius of b we are taking smaller than the radius of b of a. Here we have mentioned. Okay. Then by theorem number 2. For this open ball, we were going to write f image contains an open ball. That is, f of b contains an n ball with center at f of a. Okay. This is what a construction we have done. Now what we will do? We will denote this ball by y. Denote this ball centered at f of a by y. Okay. We have written this to be y. And what is x we are going to select? X we are going to select f inverse of y intersection b. Okay. Now why we have written this to be on f inverse is on y? Why f inverse is going to exist on y? Here we will consider the function here from x to y only, or b of a say. If I define this on b of a, where x is contained in b of a, on this function, on this ball, the function is 1 1. If it is 1 1, This is a stronger condition for the existence of an inverse. That's why we were going to assume this is b to f of b. We will get b to f of b. Therefore, on b it is 1 1. F of b gives me on 2. Therefore, the condition both the conditions holds 1 1 on 2. Therefore, inverse exists, and we are going to find the inverse of this ball y. Okay. Therefore, what we have denoted x to be f inverse intersection b. Okay. Therefore, may I say x is open since why? Since f inverse y and b are open. Why f inverse y is open? Yes. F belongs to C1 given, na? Therefore, f is continuous. We have proved one theorem. We are knowing one theorem. F is continuous if and only inverse image of open sets is open. Correct, na? Have you studied this theorem or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Therefore, this is open. No doubt y is open. Open set because it's a ball, na? Open ball. B is open ball. Therefore, it is open. Therefore, what is the intersection of two open sets? Is open. Therefore,
Open.
x is open. Y is open. X is open. Y is in T. X is in yes. Therefore, half part of the theorem we have completed here. We want to prove the existence of two open sets x and t. Correct, na? We wanted to prove there are two open sets. X is in S. Y is in T. Up to this we have proved. Right? Now we will go for a function g which satisfies the remaining condition. Any doubt up to this to the students?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Therefore, here now we will select a open ball B bar. The set B bar. What is B bar? The
B
closure of,
union dou B.
yes, the closure of B. Okay. Now one can write B bar is equals to B union dou B, ball with its boundary. This is compact, no?
Yes, ma'am.
This is compact, and F is 1 1 continuous on B bar. See, now here we were using this concept. This on B of A the function is 1 1. Now B bar we have selected B along with its boundary which is totally contained in B of A, on which the function is 1 1. Therefore one can say that on B bar also the function is 1 1. Correct? On B bar also the function is 1 1, and no doubt it is continuous as well. Therefore f is 1 1 and continuous on B bar. Now we were going to use one theorem from the metric spaces. Okay, by the theorem. Let me write it in some different text. The theorem we were going to use from the metric spaces. The theorem says that let f from S to T be a function from one metric space. As the statement is true for metric spaces, it is the n dimensional space is also metric space. Therefore, the theorem is equally true for the multivariable multivalued function. One metric space yes to another metric space T. Another metric space T. Assume that f is 1 1. So that inverse function exists. Inverse function exists. Whether onto is given in the statement, No, it is given with only 1 because this is my stronger condition. Then inverse is going to exist. On which domain inverse is going to exist?
F of S.
Good, it is going to exist on f of s. If S is compact and if F is continuous, then F inverse is continuous on f of s. Actually, f inverse is defined on f of x, and this theorem tells us if the domain is compact, the inverse is also continuous. The inverse is also continuous. Actually, with this 1 inverse exists on f of s. Only the condition if the domain is compact, inverse is also continuous. This theorem we were going to use now. Therefore, here we can write this implies by this theorem there exists a function. What is the symbol used for the inverse in the statement? G, na?
Yes, ma'am.
G, which is inverse of F defined on f of b bar. Why we are taking f of b bar? Because here we have written function is compact on b bar and we want to prove this, we want to use this statement. Therefore, now I am going to define the inverse on f of b bar, knowing b bar is compact. Therefore, it is defined on f of b bar such that how it is going to define g of f of x is equal to x, and it is for all x in what is the domain? Sorry, yes, it
B
is
bar.
b bar. For all the points in the b bar, we are going to define g of f of x is equal to x. That is, g plays a role of inverse of f. So we have found the existence of. And what about g? G is continuous, correct? No? G is continuous on f of b bar. Why it is continuous? With this theorem, f inverse is continuous, right? Because the domain is compact. G is continuous on f of b bar. Now, since x is in S is in, okay, x is in b bar, I want to write this. Since x is in b bar, correct, no? X is in b, b is in b bar. Here I will write. What x we have selected? X we have selected to be f inverse y intersection b. Therefore, x is in b, correct, na? B is in b bar. Therefore, may I write x is in b bar. Y is contained in f of b bar. Let me explain why y is in f of b bar. Why is in f of b bar? Let us check. We know that y is contained in f of b by construction. Where is y? What is y? Y is an open ball centered at f of a contained in b, no? F of b. Therefore, y is in f of b by construction. This is by construction. Now we wanted to write is in f of b bar, but that is not working. But b is contained in b bar, correct or not? Because b bar is ball with its boundary, so the ball must be contained in b bar. Then what about f of b? F of b is contained in f of b bar. Correct na? Now y is a open ball is in f of b, but f of b is in f of b bar. Therefore, may I say y is contained in f of b bar. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no? Okay, good. Therefore, x is in b bar, y is in f of b bar. Now we were able to write out the function from b bar to f of b bar. Therefore, if I write a function f from b bar to f of b bar, correct? No. Now let us go for proving all the points, 5 points, one by one. What is the first point we wanted to prove? A is in x, f of a is in y. Let us prove the points one by one. Proof of A. So instead of proof, I will write simply A. A. What we wanted to prove in this? A, we wanted to prove that A is in x and f of A is in y. Okay. Now let us start. As A is in B, whether A is in B or not, B is the ball around A. Therefore, A is
Yes,
the center
ma'am.
of B. Therefore, A is in B and capital Y is open sphere around
F of A.
around what? Yes, sphere around f of A. Therefore, may I say f of A is in Y?
Yes, ma'am.
F of A is in Y. Therefore, may I write A is in F inverse Y? Inverse exists, we have proved already. If A is in F of inverse Y, thus, may I write A is in B, A is in F of inverse Y, therefore A is in the intersection. F inverse Y intersection B. But what is this? This is X, no? Therefore, we have proved that A is in X. That is the proof of first point. Shall I repeat? A is a point in B because B is an open ball centered at A. Y is an open sphere around f of A. Therefore, surely f of A is in Y. Therefore, A is in f inverse Y. Therefore, we have proved a point A is in both the sides B and f inverse Y. Therefore, it is in the intersection. But the intersection is nothing but x. Therefore, we have proved A is equal to x. As I told you, first 4 points of the proof are readily true by the construction itself. No need to prove separately. Okay. Let us go for the B point. In point B, we want to prove that y is equal to f of x. Y is equal to f of x. Let us start. What is x? We know
F
that.
inverse
F
Y
inverse
intersection
Y
B.
intersection B.
Good. This is f inverse y intersection B. Let us take f image on both the sides. What is f of x then? This is f of f inverse y intersection B. How can we write the intersection f a intersection B? F intersection f B, no?
X.
Yeah, it is x. Good. Okay. So what is f of f inverse of y?
Y.
Y. Y intersection f of B. What is y intersection f of B? Look at the sketch, then you will understand. Y intersection f of B. This is y, open ball around f of B, and this whole open ball is in f of B. What about the intersection? Y and f of B.
Y.
Yes, it is y. True by the construction itself, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Second point is also true by the construction. F of x is equal to y. What is the third point to prove? Function is 1, 1, na? Let me write to prove that f is 1 to 1 on capital X. Okay. What actually we have proved f is 1 1 on which ball? F is 1 1 on B of A we have proved, na? On this B of A, the
Yes,
pink
ma'am.
ball. Okay. Therefore, whether X is in B of A or not, this shaded region X is in B of A or not?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is in B of A. On B of A, the function is 1 1. Then what about on X?
On X, it is
It is
also
1
on 1.
1, ma'am.
Good. Therefore, this is true by construction again. Point number 6. If we want to prove 1 1 on X. But what we have proved, as we have proved, F is 1 1 on B of A and B of A, and since X is equal to F inverse Y intersection B, no doubt is contained in B of A, may I write F is 1 1 on capital X. Right? Third point we have proved. Next, point number 4. What we wanted to prove in this? Small g is defined on Y. That is, assuming the function f, if it is a defined function from x to y, we now wanted to prove that function g is defined from y to x. Let us do. Again, on which ball we have defined the function g? Yes. G we have defined on
Y.
f of b bar.
F of B bar.
Correct now? G defined in f of b bar and y is in f of b bar. Therefore, whether G is defined on Y or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, G is defined on f of B bar, Y is in f of B bar, therefore G is defined on Y. Here is the proof again. We wanted to prove G defined on Y, and what is one more point we wanted to prove? G is defined on Y and G of Y equal to X and G of f of X is equal to X for all X in X. These many points to prove. Right now, point number D. Okay. Now all this we have already proved on f of B bar. Correct? We have proved that G is defined on f of B bar as. How it is defined on f of B bar? G of f of x is equal to x for all x in B bar. Correct, na? This is what we have written. G is defined on f of B bar such that G of f of x is equal to x for all x points in B bar. Now, can I repeat the same statement knowing x is in B bar and y is in f of B bar? Now I will write since x is in B bar, y is in f of B bar. May I say that G is defined on y also? G is defined on y and G of f of x is equal to x for all x in x also, because x is in B bar. The statement is true for all x in B bar, therefore it must be true for all x in x. Okay, if G of f of x is equal to x, G of f of x is equal to x for all x in x, okay, for all x in x, therefore may I say this is Gy is equal to x? For all the points it is true, no? If it is true for all the points,
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
G of f of capital X is equal to x. But what is capital F of x? It is y. Therefore, g of y is equal to. The fourth point is also true by the construction. What remains to prove? The fifth point remains to prove that g belongs to C1. In order to prove g belongs to C1, what we wanted to prove actually is fourth point. Sorry, fifth point, E point. G belongs to C1. That is, we want to prove all derivative that G is differentiable. In order to prove G is differentiable, we have to prove that all this G has all finite partial derivatives. It is having all finite partial derivative and are continuous also. Okay. The proof of this fifth point is somewhat lengthy. Therefore, we will stop for today. We will take the proof of this E point in the next lecture. Time being, if you have any doubt on today's class, you can ask me. The whole proof depends on this construction only. And this construction depends upon previous 2-3 theorems. GF is non-zero on open ball. If it is non-zero on open ball, then it is 1-1 as well. And image of open ball contains an open ball centered at f of a, etc. Some previous 2-3 theorem, if it is clear, then this construction would be clear. If once this construction is clear, no problem with the proof of the theorem, inverse function theorem. I request every student to watch the lecture by Professor S. Kumaresan. The link of the lecture I have already shared on the Google Classroom. He has given me the proof of inverse function theorem. Okay. If you have any difficulty, you can please unmute yourself and ask me. Yes, students, any doubt? It seems you are not having a doubt. Let me stop for today. The last point we will take in the next lecture. Thank you for watching the lecture.